Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. My name is Brea Baker. I am here as always with my amazing co-host, Jamira Burley. And today we are honoring the work, words, life, and legacy of our beloved Assata Shakur.
Yes, absolutely. Assata Shakur was a freedom fighter forced into exile after a racist encounter with law enforcement in the United States criminal justice system. She fled to Cuba, where she was granted political asylum and continued writing, theorizing, and dreaming of a better world, one where Black people were free from fascism, capitalism, and white supremacy. Her autobiography has been radicalizing text for many of us as we continue to struggle with how we show up in the world. Hardly going through protests, in her words, without hearing truly the pain and suffering, but also her visualizing what could be possible. One of her words really brought all of us to, I think, understand and contextualize that is, it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. And I think that is so prevalent in this moment. And I can't wait to spend more time unpacking her impact and what it means for us as we pick up the baton that she left behind and continue with the work ahead. So let's get into the headlines first.
Yes. Well, I'm going to keep up with my good news first headline. Bad Bunny is headlining the 2026 Super Bowl. Nueva York. I'm so hyped.
I don't know what that means, but yes.
It's one of his songs, but also because I'm in New York, I can't not put that one on. But yeah, so I just love that he's about to represent for Latinos and like just everyone who's been putting their middle finger up to this Trump administration. I think that we need his energy right now. Immigrant communities and specifically Latinos, immigrant communities have been under such attack. And I think that this will be such a moment of joy and defiance. And I'm excited for it. It also just has all the racists scrambling. Who is Bad Bunny? Is he even going to speak English? I'm like, I hope he don't.
You know what's so funny that you say that is that every single person on Threads made a really good observation that every Black person that she saw celebrating Bad Bunny being the headline show or for the halftime show for the Super Bowl, a concert that has a little bit of Super Bowls kind of sprinkled in there, is the fact that we all were kind of saying, yeah, we'd totally be fine if his entire performance was in Spanish, even if I understood no words, right? And that just goes to show that you can elevate people from different backgrounds without feeling the need that they have to customize their music, their art to meet you where you are, and you not like unpacking that. Like I took Spanish for 3 years. Do I plan to shake it all on my couch while I watch the Super Bowl? Specifically, just only watch the halftime show because,
unless your ego's make you
NFL. But what's also interesting is it's a prime example that even institutions like the NFL that has shown themselves to be very racist in recent years, especially in regards to Colin Kaepernick, and also recently many teams celebrating or mourning the loss of Charlie Kirk, is the fact that despite that, they know that they cannot move without us, right? Like no one is showing to your Super Bowl if you are not like without the talent and culture and like fashion and entertainment and complexity of Black and brown artists. And they still have to mold themselves to open the door for us, despite the fact that they probably would love to exclude us under normal circumstances. And I love it for him.
Yeah, same. I also think to your point about mentioning that like even Black non-Spanish speaking Black folks are excited or saying like it's okay if I don't understand all of it, is that those who have been forced onto the margins understand that it is not oppression necessarily to not always have to be the target group, the target audience, to not always be centered. We have had to see ourselves in other communities over time, and that can be a really beautiful thing when you're not always, put on the outside. But because white people,
mainstream,
white men only know how to be in the center, any moment when they are not the center of attention, when they are not the target audience, feels like oppression to them because they don't know what real oppression feels like. And I think that this is going to be a really important moment for you to recognize that you might have to Google who he is, and you'll find out he's one of the most streamed artists in the world right now, that he is going to bring in an insane amount of viewership, and that this is more to the NFL's benefit than to his. He does not need the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl needs him, as Jay-Z said.
No, exactly. And like understanding the fact that, Black and brown folks are the global majority. We are not the minority. And the NFL is trying to broaden its audience to a global audience. That means it has to have artists come in that doesn't normally fit the white male ideology or stereotypes that exist within this country, that this entire country was made around. So I'm excited to see it, especially if my, beloved team, the Eagles, make it to the Super Bowl, but I can't be greedy. Greedy. I could be greedy, and I'm going to be greedy.
America's quarterback. I'll be greedy for that.
Yeah, why not? Why not? So in good news, actually, I'll keep up that momentum for you. Eric Adams has abandoned his reelection bid for mayor of New York. Can we all clap, please?
Round of applause.
Round of applause. Yeah, it's quite entertaining. So Eric Adams decided to run as an independent for his reelection rebid, and he was not gaining traction like he thought he was. He was not raising money like he thought he was. He also was then being used as a tool for the Trump administration, who has decided not to allow the federal government to move forward with his corruption cases because they wanted to use him. And they had been using him over the last few months. He has opened the door to the Trump administration doing some very heinous and despicable things to the citizens of New York. And so he decided to run as an independent because he knew he would not win the Democratic primary, which he did not. And so also Trump wants Cuomo to be the mayor of New York. And so they're trying to remove all the barriers that would prevent Cuomo from winning against Zoran Mudandi, and who I'm crossing fingers for. New York deserves better. Do I think that all Zoran's ideas are going to be possible, considering we live in a very capitalist United States society? No, but I'm also forcing myself to have an imagination bigger than the ones that we've been allowed to have, and thinking that maybe some of these things are possible if we rethink how our society functions. Also, I should mention, fun fact, many people are now speculating that the reason Eric Adams got out is twofold. One, he was offered a job by the Trump administration. And two, his ex-girlfriend, who he created an entire six-figure job within his administration for, is now coming out with the tell-all book. And the tea is hot. So I'm very excited.
What is this Real Housewives of New York mayoral office? Like, this is insane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, that's what happens when you elect a party promoter and a DJ.
Yeah. Or as my person,
a police officer,
a bottle girl. Yeah.
A bottle girl. No, but yes.
No, I completely agree with you. And again, like I'm a huge Zoran Mamdani fan. I think that in the name of being realistic, we continue to shoot ourselves in the foot and bring on people who will promise us things that get us nowhere. And I'd rather shoot for the stars and see where we can get with someone like Zoran. So I agree. And the only reason I may have wanted an Eric Adams to stay in the race was to split that vote with Cuomo. And so I think now we're going to just have to, Zoran killed Cuomo in the primaries. But that was when it was Democrats. And so we have to go up against the fact that Republicans are taking their best bets on how they can keep Zoran out, and they're going to potentially go for Cuomo as a safer option. And so we have to really organize. So if you have not listened to our previous episode that we did a while back with Jamal Bowman, and you can hear more about his thoughts on the Zoran campaign, and hopefully we'll be able to bring on more from that office soon. My next headline: Cassie asked judge to weigh her suffering when sentencing Sean Combs. For those who have sort of been like, wait, whatever happened with Diddy? His sentencing is this week. I believe the sentencing with the judge is going to be happening on Friday. And so that'll be after this episode goes live. But y'all will be able to, we'll unpack that when we next talk to one another. But I'm just sending her so much love. When she spoke to the judge, she talks about how she's still having nightmares, is still seeking psychological care, has relocated her family out of the state in anticipation of any retaliation if he does get let off. And so it's a reminder that even though folks feel like Diddy has received justice, that doesn't undo what Cassie and other victims are dealing with and fighting with, and the reality that Diddy is not about to get life. He's not going to be in prison forever, and so her fear is not really going away; it's just being delayed. And what does actual justice look like for survivors like Cassie?
Yeah, and the people that enable him, right? Like Diddy, similar to Bill Cosby, similar to R. Kelly, operated for years, right? And Cassie is not the only victim. And he was only able to do so because of the people around him that cultivated, that's complied in advance, that enabled, that bought the tickets, that hid the evidence, that gaslight victims, that transported victims. And so I totally understand her fear, and the fear of probably many others who know that this is so much bigger than just one man, but an entire ecosystem around him. And that should he get released, he probably is going, because he wasn't convicted of every single crime he was accused of. Many people are going to see this as, that he should just continue as normal, that people invited to the party, invited to the award shows, being able to operate in a way that still might potentially put people in harm's risk or blacklist them. And yeah, I hope the judge really takes that into consideration. But we live in a country that rarely takes into the consideration of the experience of victims. And we see that every single day, that this country and much of the world hates women, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's in protection of women, whether it's in holding folks accountable for the harm against women, almost every single industry across the board has not shown up for women in the way that they should. So yeah, that sucks. And my final headline, as many of you already know, the Secretary of War, high school reject, decided to invite more than 800 generals and admirals from around the world, US generals and admirals. And you might ask yourself, oh my God, I didn't know we had that many admirals and generals. And why were they around the world? Well, because the US has one of the largest military forces in the world. All of our allies combined do not make up the amount of money and manpower that we have. And we have military bases all over the world. So homeboy Pete decided to invite all 800 of them to Washington, D.C. for a little powwow. And so many things are wrong with that powwow that they had. And we should probably have a larger episode about this, because I think it's going to be very dangerous for a lot of people, considering the changes that he wants to make. Not only did Trump project that he wants the Department of War to be seen as, to use American streets as a testing ground, right? To attack the enemy within the United States, which is against the law. We should not have military on our streets. That is not the purpose of the military. But also, Pete had just he's not worth understanding or pronouncing his name correctly. The Secretary of War also alluded to the fact that he wanted to eliminate many of the safeguards that are in place to protect victims within the military, whether it's victims of sexual assault, victims of racial discrimination. He wants to remove all of those things because he doesn't want to deter or deflect from somebody else's career trajectory, which is classed as white male privilege in every single way. And he also alluded to the fact that he wants to remove certain contingencies or stipulations that enables for certain cultures to exist within the military, whether that's through beards and long hair, that for many people might be religious or culturally necessary. And so there's a lot to unpack, but it's just a very dangerous rhetoric that the Trump administration is trying to protect, and also trying to weaponize the military against its citizens, which is crazy because the military have families at home. Like, do they think they're so detached from the realities of the world that they're going to go into American streets and potentially harm people who look like their family, that may be their family? The delusion is just, very
delusional is the exact right word. Yeah, I think that I'm just wondering, like, what is it going to take for these people to decide? Again, we've said this term often, like not complying in demand, complying in advance, excuse me. And what is it going to take? Because in other countries, you'd have military coups for less. You'd have military deciding we're not taking these orders for much less. And so I'm just wondering, like, what is it going to take for service members to decide, I'm not going to serve under this administration. I'm not going to be deployed against the people we're supposed to be protecting. But it just feels like right now everyone's going with this racist ass flow. It's just really alarming to feel like, wow, we have no backbone. Like we're gonna follow this man right off a cliff. And again, and it not have anything to do by 2028 at the rate that we're going.
Which is crazy because we are literally a country that was created through protests, right? The protests of not of fleeing a country that was not meeting the needs of those people, of fleeing, coming to the United States, and the indigenous folks here also protest, right? Fought back. Whether we're talking about slave revolts, like in every aspect of this country, there have been revolutionary fighters who have fought back against authoritarian and discriminatory policies and practices. And it just feels like, I don't know if people are just in shock. Do they not think that things are going to get that bad? Are they just oblivious to the fact that they themselves are not directly impacted? I don't really know, but I know that there are protests happening around the country, so I don't want to like discourage that. But I still think that there is a level of detachment, mental detachment that people are doing right now in order to grapple with the fact that there is so much being thrown at them every single day. But we got to snap out of it. We do.
Yeah,
I think the only way to get there is through clearly this shutdown, which I think the Democrats would have loved to avoid, which is like, y'all get it together.
Everybody do more. As you said, everybody do more.
Yeah, but also through a potential general election. Businesses have so much influence over Trump. And if it's only about money, then let's stop the flow of money.
General boycott. Or strike. I'm totally with you on that. I think that it has been very effective in the past. It's been how we stopped apartheid in South Africa. It's been there's been so many successful movements that have been initiated through boycotts and strikes, and I think we absolutely need that one. Maybe we got to have an episode on that, bring in our girl Tiff again.
Let's shut it down.
We got to shut shit down. But to that point, back to Assata Shakur, I think that she is such a prime example of not waiting on the government to do what your community needs, and not being afraid to speak truth to power. So again, let's go on a break real quick. But when we come back, we'll talk more about Assata and how she and other recently transitioned elders turned ancestors can be our guides through moments like this. Because as much as we love to say the word unprecedented, we're not living through unprecedented times. There are blueprints for how we get ourselves out of it. And we just have to, as you said, snap out of it, stop being spectators, and like get on the front lines. So
absolutely. We'll be right back.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. We just finished walking through some of the latest headlines, and now it's time to talk about our beloved Assata Shakur, who recently passed in Cuba at her home, who was there for the last 40 years.
Yeah. One thing I noticed with the outpouring of love and grief over Assata's death was just how many of us were inspired through her autobiography. So many people who I love and respect, who I know and don't know, talked about being early activists and finding themselves and being radicalized through her words. I can remember being like 18 or 19 and reading her autobiography kind of around the same time that I read Malcolm X and Angela Davis's autobiographies. And those three, it just felt like the big three of autobiographies.
Yeah, that would radicalize me too, Brea.
Yeah, no, for real. Yeah, it like took it, especially, you know, I'm at that time, it's Black Lives Matter is coming up, and Eric Garner and Trayvon Martin and so many things. And so all three shaped me immensely. But what I remember about Assata's autobiography in particular is that she opened with affirmations. And when I think of Black Panthers and when I think of the imagery of an Assata Shakur, I expected someone so much more militant. But she opens the book with, I believe in living. I believe in sunshine. I believe in life. I've been locked by the lawless, handcuffed by the haters, gagged by the greedy. And if I know anything at all, it's that a wall is just a wall and nothing more at all. It can be broken down. And I just remember feeling like, as just throughout the book, feeling, man, this is someone who is not just angry, but really feels so much love for the people. And it was a reminder for me to not be more fueled by how angry I was at systems of oppression and people who do bad, but to be in love with the people that I'm serving, and to expose me to the reality that the best revolutionaries love the people, love the possibilities. They're not just running away from something, they're running towards something. And Assata is someone who just taught me to be more imaginative and joyful about what I'm fighting for, not just against.
No, yeah, it was heartbreaking. To your point, like I think many of us who became very conscious and woke at a very early age, and I hate to use the word woke right now because people love to, misconstrue it. But yeah, Assata Shakur autobiography is one of the first of those books. And the words I believe in living, I believe in sunshine, reminds me of the fact that so often this country tries to gaslight us about why we do the things we do, why we care the way we care, and why our actions should be seen as an act of love versus hell, yeah, it should also be seen as an act of love and an act of war, especially when war has been inflicted upon us. And I remember, reading her words and trying to then search for more people like her during that time period, whether you talk about Malcolm X and learning about how his father was killed by white people, how his mother was institutionalized, just so much of that time period of consuming her words and understanding her actions. Built up so much rage within me as a young person. But through her autobiography, I was also able to find some level of like level setting and like reflection of love within myself, right? That we are deserving of a world that does not criminalize us, that does not brutalize us, that does not look for ways to continue to break our self-esteem down, make us feel worthless. And it's so interesting when the last few years, folks have been using this phrase of we are not our ancestors. And they do it with the sense of, we're better than. And I'm like, no, we're nowhere near the sacrifices made by our ancestors who were willing to risk it all. Like Assata Shakur risked it all. She had to flee the United States as a result. She had to disconnect herself from the very people that she was fighting for. And she did so because she loved us so much, right? She believed what was possible for us. And, I feel like part of her passing just feels like, she held the fight for so long, and now is our time to, my point earlier, pick up the baton and continue to continue that work, especially at a time where we're dealing with a fascist government that wants to create a permanent underclass and use Black people to do so. So. So much has happened since Assata Shakur fled the United States 40 years ago that is different, but still so much the same. And we have to reflect on her life and legacy as, to your point earlier, the blueprint for how we continue to fight collectively together, right? They can't force all of us to leave, right? They can't push all of us into exile. They can't, incarcerate all of us. So like, what does it look like for us as Black folks to show up and show out in connection and solidarity with those from other cultures and communities? Because now is the time. Otherwise, in 40 years, the memory of Assata may be erased from the history books just by the simple fact that we're allowing books to be banned right now. right?
That part. Yeah, and we can't let them do that. Mark Lamont Hill gave such a beautiful tribute to Assata Shakur when on the Joe Budden podcast. I think it perfectly encapsulates so much of what you're saying right now as far as what Assata was up against, who she was to so many of us, but why we have to keep her name and her work alive. So let's watch that.
Since we're talking about rest in peace, of course, it's a really important moment to say rest in peace to Assata Shakur, one of the giants of the freedom struggle, the Black freedom struggle here in the United States. She passed away of Thursday of this week in Cuba. For those that don't know, Assata Shakur was a former Black Panther, former member of the Black Liberation Army, who was one of many people due to the COINTEL program, the COINTELPRO, government counterintelligence program, was surveilled, was railroaded. She was accused of a lot of things: murder, bank robbery, kidnapping, etc. She was acquitted 3 times. 3 cases got dropped, but she was also tried and convicted in absentia for the murder of a New Jersey state trooper. The medical evidence proved that she did not do it. She actually was paralyzed in the arm that they said that she shot. Anyway, she was arrested. She was convicted. She was placed in a prison. She was the first woman to be placed in a men's prison in U.S. history. She was in Middlesex prison. She was also in Clinton Correctional. And while there, she was tortured in so many ways. Assata's a hero of mine. She's actually one of the people tattooed on me. And Assata stands as a figure of power and possibility for so many of us. Assata in 1984 was liberated by the Black Liberation Army. Now that she's passed, I feel a little bit more comfortable talking about what happened, but it's not my place to tell the whole story. But people broke in, freed her, including Sekou Odinga, who passed away earlier this year. My brother, rest in peace to him. They freed her out of the prison, and she escaped to Cuba, where she received diplomatic immunity and has stayed in Cuba for the last 4 decades. Shout out to the Cuban government for protecting her and keeping her safe, even though New Jersey attempted to bring her back many, many times, starting with Tom Ridge forward. They've had her on the FBI terrorist list for decades now. She's the first woman to be on there, but she stayed free. She's been a giant in hip hop. If some of y'all listen to Rebel Without a Pause, when you hear Chuck D say that he supports Chesamard, he's talking about Joanne Chesamard, who is Assata Shakur. When you hear a song for Assata on
Like Water for Chocolate,
or Like Water for Chocolate, they're talking about Assata Shakur. All the Black August events that we saw when Black August hip hop went to Cuba that first time, that major trip, they visited Assata Shakur. Assata Shakur was a friend of Afeni Shakur. Tupac.
She's named after her, right?
Yeah, sort of. And they're all part of it. That's a whole interesting conversation too that we could talk about maybe later. But Tupac also referred to her as Auntie Assata. Yeah. Assata was a legend and a mentor and a resource to so many of us, although she remained hidden in Cuba, especially in the later years. She just stands tall and strong, and I'm grateful that she was able to live free and die free. Yes. So we say always hands off Assata, always free all political prisoners, always love to Assata. So we want to send rest in peace as she returns to the ancestors.
Rest in peace, Assata.
Shout out to my brother, Mark Lamont Hill, for those beautiful, beautiful words in tribute to Assata. And it's just such a powerful reminder of what the cost was for so many of our elders and ancestors who dared to dream and fight for that dream. They tried to railroad Assata Shakur, as eloquently described by Mark Lamont Hill. They locked her up with men twice her size in a male prison. They put her on the terrorist watch list, doubled her bounty. I won't say who did, but and raised the bounty for her capture. And still she lived and educated and wrote. And it reminds me of a saying that they tried to bury us, but they didn't know that we were seeds, because we continue to grow, we continue to sprout despite all of the abuse and neglect that this country inflict on us. So long live Assata Shakur.
Yeah, love her, long live her. And as Fred Hampton said, you can't kill the revolution. I know it makes the U.S. government sick to their stomachs knowing they never got their hands on her after decades and decades of trying to get her, but we still love her from afar, and we're learning from her example. And I think that's so critical for us to keep doing.
No, and that's what's so most important at a time like this. We should feel our grief and mourn it, of course, but also preserve our energy so that we can amplify the gains, right? New ancestors are upon us who left behind the blueprint, who continue to show us how to fight. If Assata Shakur could be outspoken at a time where we're talking about we're talking about 40 years ago, right? Like nowhere near as bad or as much rights and publicity as we have now, right? If you are arrested, there are probably 20 people filming that arrest right now. Like there's a level of accountability that did not exist for Assata Shakur. And if she could be outspoken then and create so many resources and gains then we should not be compliant in advance. We should not shy away from revolutionary love and revolutionary actions if it means that we can reach a level of success and liberation for us here and now, but also for future generations.
Exactly.
We make those sacrifices for us, so we have to think about what sacrifices are we willing to make for the generation to come.
Period. Yeah, we owe it to her to not just say her name, but to study her work and follow her lead. She never wanted to be a celebrity or a statue or a monument. She was a living guide towards revolutionary action, which means advocating for freeing political prisoners, resisting capitalism and individualism, educating ourselves no matter what books they ban, and supporting today's activists, not just the ones that we can safely love from afar, you know?
No, absolutely. We literally have to ask ourselves, like, what would Assata Shakur do, and run towards that. Use that as our North Star.
Yep. As she said when she was alive, we need to be weapons of mass construction, weapons of mass love. Let's invite each other in. Let's build and design a world that is more loving than the one that we are tearing down.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk with an incredible Black woman who has lifted up revolutionary women like Assata Shakur and who has invited new generations on how to continue that work. You are watching On the Other Side of Change only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. Today we have such a special guest, a woman who I am so honored to follow her lead, who's going to help us unpack Assata Shakur's power, what it means to keep running the marathon that our elders and our ancestors started. Briana Baker is a magna cum laude graduate of Spelman College and Columbia University who founded Justice for Black Girls. Her proudest moments as an educator include the implementation of her social justice curriculum at Rikers Island, where she taught a course on women's liberation. Justice for Black Girls has expanded into a national nonprofit where they're creating liberated spaces to disrupt the structural harm that Black girls often experience. snaps to that. JBG has become a national voice on the urgency of Black girls' safety within and beyond the classroom. They are archived in the Library of Congress under protests against racism, cited in the White House Roundtable for Girl Leaders. Her work has been featured in national publications everywhere, but most importantly, her work is a safe space for Black girls' safekeeping and a national rallying cry for us all to listen to. So I'm just so honored that you are here to help us talk about the Black women that we are following the leads of, and how new generations of not just Black girls, but especially us, can follow their lead. Thank you for being with us, Brea.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here, a part of this critical conversation, a part of you all's critical's work, and more importantly, the lives that you all lead that are in legacy and in honoring of beloved Assata.
Yes, because the world is constantly looking for ways to put Black women down. So I'm always happy to be in a conversation and in community with y'all. I'm curious, Brea, when were you introduced to the work and legacy of Assata Shakur, and what did you feel when you heard about her passing?
Yeah, so was introduced to that work in undergrad at Spelman College. There is when I got the experience to learn about all of the Black women that made space for me to exist in the way that I want to take up space. I had learned about folks, but I hadn't learned about folks that took up space the way that Assata took up space. And so by reading her autobiography, I immediately was invigorated to resist differently, to show up differently, to activate differently, to demand more from our world differently. And then we immediately, once I realized what I was missing, I knew we needed to create a curriculum to ensure that Black girls nationally would have access to this information sooner, because as excited as I was to feel seen and activated and radicalized by her autobiography, I realized that I needed that information sooner and that more folks needed access to that information.
Amazing.
Facts. Yes to us knowing about her earlier. There has been such an outpouring of love for her, especially from the Black community and from progressives. And I love that that's the way that many people are being introduced to her legacy, like this younger generation. But we also know that the only reason she was in Cuba at the time of her death is because she was still being hunted. Current FBI director literally tweeted that they never stopped calling her what she was, a terrorist. With this in mind, why is it important that we reclaim and preserve the legacies of our elders and ancestors, knowing that the opposition is going to try and bastardize and turn them into something that they weren't?
Yeah. We know that the state has a way of dishonoring Black women and girls, even in the ways that they're memorialized. We know that the narratives around Black women and girls are always going to be shifted to villainize us, to dishonor us. And so part of our work of reclamation and remembering is around owning our narrative, owning our truths. And a quote that really, really resonates with me deeply from beloved Assata is, "I refuse to kill my children in my mind before they're even born." That is something that is a North Star for me in this work. So I refuse to allow Assata's legacy to die before children that aren't even born. Like our babies that aren't even born must know her and must know her. And that roadmap is going to get us closer to liberation. And so we would be doing ourselves a disservice to forget the roadmap that got us here, because the roadmap that gets us here is going to innovate past where we are now. And so it's crucial. It's crucial. I mean, these are our roadmaps. Like, we can't get anywhere without them. And so that mantra really just penetrates deeply in my spirit, in my heart, in my mind, around the ways in which we must honor, capture, and archive our North Stars.
Yeah, especially when you think about like the correlation of, Assata Shakur passing a week and a half after Charlie Kirk. And she led so much of her life with love and justice and liberation, not just for Black folks, because like when you give Black folks justice and love, it cascades across the entire community outside of Black people. And yet Charlie Kirk lived his life through hate, and the way the United States elevated him and moralized him and the way they demonized her long before she even did the things that they claimed that she did. And I feel like that is just a clear reminder that we are not loved in this country, at least by the establishment. And we have to, it's our job as Black women, as the Black community, to protect her legacy at all costs. Because her legacy, if it's able to be distorted and misused and erased, there's no saying what they'll do to ours. So, as an educator, Brea, and a nonprofit leader, you have done some of this work specifically to give the flowers to luminaries like Nikki Giovanni, Angela Davis. Where did you get that inspiration from, especially considering, I'm sure the battles you had to face to be able to create the ecosystem for that to be possible, and the conversations you probably had with funders on why it was necessary to fund this kind of work?
Yeah, Ashe. One, because when I say that Black girls are the experts able to innovate solutions to the problems that we're asking, I mean it. And so our babies invited us into that work, and being in direct conversation with them, with our curriculum, and introducing them to the works of Assata, to the works of Nikki Giovanni, to the works of Angela Davis. They had questions about how they continue this work, and the best way for them to receive those answers and also be affirmed as not just learners, but producers of knowledge. And, Black girls that have the agency and power to be what I tell them all the time: you're going to be someone else's Angela Davis. You're going to be someone else's, you're going to be someone else's Giovanni. So these women are who they are for us. And I'm already knowing that our babies that we're cultivating are someone else's ancestor. And so in order for us to truly affirm that in a way that's better, loving Black girls better than we were loved, we have to put them in rooms that affirm their genius, not just in the future, but their genius now. And so they were having conversations with our stakeholders, with our leaders, with our luminaries, about what it means to innovate new realities, about what it means to experience Black girlhood in a way that wrestles with complex glory and all of the wonderful things, but also the very real realities of navigating misogyny war, right? I mean what I say when I demand justice for Black girls. And when we're talking about justice for Black girls, it's not just a reactive response to all of the harms happening. It's proactively creating the liberated world we want to see. And the only way that we do that is to be in community with the folks that have been doing this work long before we existed. JBG would not exist without Assata. JBG would not exist without Nikki Giovanni. JBG would not exist without Angela Davis. And so while we have the privilege and the gift of sharing space and time, we will take up space in the ways that we know how, in the best ways that we can.
I love it.
Yes. Oh, I love this so much. And having been in the room, it was so special to see high school students literally handing bouquets to Nikki Giovanni, being exposed to her brilliance and getting to sit with them on panels. And I love the way that you put them in conversation and remind them you will be an ancestor one day. Yeah. And let's treat, these elders and these ancestors the way you want to one day be honored. Yeah. Okay. So last question, which I feel like you've kind of touched on, but just to bring us home, as our elders and leaders are passing on, what does it mean to pick up their baton? How do we keep their work alive? And what would you encourage to our listeners who are feeling like we're losing all of these giants in our community?
Yeah, I would say one, grieving is sacred. Keeping that knowingness around who they are to us and who they will always be, that's sacred. And grief truly is love with nowhere to go. And so we have to learn how to place that love somewhere. And the way that we place the love of our ancestors is to actualize in this realm what they've been working on. And so part of the way that we're going to honor our ancestors and part of the way that we're going to grieve Assata is by ensuring that more babies know about her, and that more folks are not killing children in their mind before they even exist, and that more folks are filling the space between dream and action, and more space are becoming mass weapons of love, right? The way that we honor and that we grieve and is that we love deeper and we live in a way that would make them smile in the next room. And so what's crucially important for us is that we are sharing the information, and not just for folks who don't care whether we are alive or dead anyway, for ourselves. We have to reclaim these narratives, not to convince anyone else, but for ourselves. That is where the power is for us. We are reclaiming the narrative of Assata and owning the narrative for our babies, for those who are committed to understanding the genius of Assata, for folks who are committed to understanding the power of her. I'm not here to convince anyone about the sacredness of my ancestors. That's not why I exist. I'm very clear on my mission. I'm here to share their power with the babies who are descendants of their genius and their power. I'm here to empower our babies, because I believe that's the true meaning of empowerment. It's a spiritual element to it that enables you to transcend different realms and is a reminder of what lives in you. I'm here for that. I'm here to equip our babies with the audacity, the resistance, and tenacity that Assata has, so that when they feel feel like they need it. They realize they can tap into something larger. And so we're here to grieve. We're here to love. We're here to honor for us.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much, especially because like who would Giovanni and Angela Davis be if it wasn't for people like you helping to nurture them at very young ages and giving them the tools and resources to believe that what they thought, what they envisioned was possible. So with that being said, where can viewers stay connected to you, learn more about your work and support your work?
Yes, so we are super proud to be building a national education platform on our social media. You can follow us at Justice4 Black Girls, and then you can also subscribe to our newsletter on justice4blackgirls.com to stay connected with all our programming and see all of the incredible things that our young people are building out in real time.
Thank you so much, Bree, for joining the show. We love and appreciate you so much. And yes, I just hope that all of our listeners are inspired to expose the young people in their lives to these legacies. We're not convincing anyone of our magic, as you said.
Oh, no.
We are just amplifying and spreading it and being, bullhorns for the work that has already been done. So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Safe travels and pleasure.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye.
Bye. Oh, that warms my heart.
No, literally same. I'm like, okay, now I'm more energized because I feel like I entered this feeling just like, Assata. But as Bree said, grief is just love with nowhere to go, and we just have to place it. And so I feel really energized around placing that love in the right areas. So
absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break. You are watching On the Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. What a gift to have had Assata Shakur as long as we did. And though I wish she would have been free to travel America and the world, leading and teaching, she left us so many important works that are breadcrumbs to remain connected to this fight for collective liberation and for freedom for Black Americans. And that fight does not need to be a pessimistic one, and it doesn't end with her. As Assata said, part of being a revolutionary is creating a vision that is more humane, that is more fun too, that is more loving. It's really working to create something beautiful. And she did just that, and we need to continue that work.
Absolutely. And if you haven't already read Assata Shakur's autobiography, please do. You can also support organizations like Justice for Black Girls, Black Women, Radicals, and Black Feminist Futures to stay connected to the ongoing legacy work that is tied to revolutionaries like Assata Shakur.
You've been watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. Until next time, never, ever, ever stop fighting for a better tomorrow.